This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Li Jianhua. Welcome to the program. Our top stories this hour. NATO condemns violent clashes in northern Kosovo that injured 30 of its peacekeepers and at least 50 ethnic Serbian protesters. Multiple drones hit Moscow. Russia accuses Ukraine of staging a terrorist strike. Bombarding the capital, Kiev is hit by a fresh wave of Russian airstrikes for the fourth time in 3 days. Out of this world, China sends its first civilian into orbit bound for the country's Tiangong space station. NATO has condemned the violence in northern Kosovo, which left 30 of its peacekeepers and at least 50 ethnic Serbian protesters injured. Both the European Union and NATO have called for calm after unrest in the region intensified over the installation of ethnic Albanian mayors. China says the violence is due to a failure to respect Serbian political rights.
China is closely following the developments and supports Serbia's efforts to safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. We oppose unilateral actions by the provisional institutions of self-government in Pristina and call on it to earnestly fulfill its obligation to establish the community of Serb-majority municipalities. We urge NATO to earnestly respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the relevant countries and truly do what is conducive to regional peace.
Serbia's President Aleksandar Vučić has met with ambassadors of the so-called Quint Group, the United States, Italy, France, Germany and Britain in Belgrade. He said in a statement that he had asked for ethnic Albanian mayors to be removed from their offices in northern Kosovo. Our correspondent Michael Voss reports.
On Tuesday morning, NATO-backed KFOR peacekeepers set up fresh barriers in a bid to secure the 4 disputed town halls in the predominantly Serb regions of northern Kosovo. Yesterday, at least 30 KFOR soldiers and more than 50 Serbian protesters were injured in clashes outside the municipal buildings in Svetsan. The crisis began in April when Kosovo Serbs boycotted local elections. This saw ethnic Albanian mayors take control with less than 4% of the vote. The violence escalated after the authorities tried on Friday to install the new mayors in these predominantly Serbian towns. Russia, an ally of Serbia, has called the current situation alarming.
A big explosion is brewing in the centre of Europe, in the very place where in 1999 NATO carried out aggressions against Yugoslavia. The situation is alarming, but the West has set a course for the total subjugation of everyone who somehow expresses their own opinion.
In the late 1990s, Kosovo tried to break away from Serbia, which led to a short, bloody conflict pitting NATO forces against Serbian troops. Kosovo finally declared independence in 2008, which neither Serbia, Russia or China have ever recognized. More than 90% of Kosovo is made up of ethnic Albanians. The Serb minority in the north continues to push for the implementation of an EU-brokered deal for the creation of an association of autonomous municipalities in the area. Both the US and EU, whose NATO peacekeepers are based in Kosovo, have criticized the authorities there for destabilizing the situation in North Kosovo. For the moment, though, the Kosovo leadership shows no sign of backing down. Michael Voss, CGTN.
Our correspondent Alyosha Mirankovic is in Belgrade. Alyosha, what's the latest?
What we can hear at this moment is that there is no any violence today in northern Kosovo. Serbs didn't appear at the barricades which were erected by the KFOR troops around three municipal buildings in the northern Kosovo, in the towns of Zvečan, Zubin Potok and Leposavić. What we have seen this morning is that KFOR erected anti-demonstration barricades in front of the two buildings in two cities, while in front of the municipal building in the town of Zvečan, which was the site of the fearsome clashes between KFOR troops and local Serbs yesterday, right there they established a barbed wire cordon which is actually preventing anyone coming closer to that municipal buildings. Kosovo Albanian mayors today didn't appear to work, didn't appear to those municipal buildings. It is apparently under the suggestion of the United States ambassador in Pristina, who suggested that to Pristina authorities in order to try to de-escalate situation. So today it is relatively peaceful and calm, but Serbs demand the release of two of those of their compatriots who actually were arrested yesterday in Zvečan during those clashes, during those fighting, and they say if they are not released by tomorrow, there will be more protests in the northern Kosovo. But today was the day for diplomacy, and so many people, so many politicians from around the world pitched their opinion about what is happening in Kosovo and what should be done next, including EU High Representative Josep Borrell. Let's hear what he had to say.
I have had contacts with Kosovo Prime Minister Albin Kurti again this morning, and with Serbia President Aleksandar Vučić overnight. I asked both parties to urgently take measures to de-escalate tensions immediately and unconditionally, and any further unilateral action has to be avoided and calm being restored.
Alyosha, Serbia's president has met with China's ambassador to Serbia.
Yes, two of them met earlier today here in Belgrade, and Ambassador Chembo went to the Serbian presidency. She met Serbian president, and what we learned, what we heard from Serbian president Instagram page is that he asked Ambassador Chembo, to pass the message to Beijing that Serbia is afraid what can happen next in northern Kosovo, that there can be no more Serbs in northern Kosovo, and that Pristina authorities don't want to de-escalate and that don't want to see Serbs in northern Kosovo at all. And this is something that Serbia is very concerned of, and that's one of the reasons why Serbia has sent a lot of its troops, and we are witnessing many reports from the ground that Serbia sent a lot of its troops to the administrative line between Serbia and its breakaway province of Kosovo and Metohija. And this is something that Serbia is threatening with an action in case some of its demands or demands of Serbs or the rights of Serbs in northern Kosovo are not met. And Serbs in northern Kosovo just said, just maybe half an hour ago, that none of their requests were met. And their requests are full removal of all 4 mayors, Albanian mayors, from those 4 Serbian-dominated municipalities, release of all Serbs who are detained from yesterday, and of course total de-escalation of the situation. And KFOR, according to Serbs and Serbian demands, KFOR can remain there, and KFOR can remain within those municipal buildings in the northern Kosovo.
Thank you very much. That is our correspondent Alyosha Milenkovic in Belgrade. Russia has launched a new wave of drone attacks on Kiev, leaving at least 1 person dead and 3 injured. The airstrikes took place in the early hours of Tuesday morning, with Ukraine saying it intercepted more than 20 drones. Residents were evacuated from a residential building after it caught fire. It's Russia's 17th attack on the Ukrainian capital since the beginning of May. And Moscow has been hit by a large-scale drone attack, causing damage to residential buildings. The mayor of Moscow says 2 people were injured and residents of the tower blocks were evacuated. Russia's defense ministry says all 8 drones were intercepted. It's the second such incident in the capital, following an alleged drone attack on the Kremlin earlier this month. Our correspondent Stuart Smith is at the neighborhoods being attacked in Moscow. Stuart, so direct attacks on Moscow are not usual. You are there at the scene of the attack. What did you hear this morning and how are people reacting?
Yeah, so it was remarkable, really, how quickly things seem to have settled down. Indeed, there weren't any civilian deaths and there were also only a few casualties. So that may have affected the reaction of people throughout the city over the course of the day. But indeed, the vast majority of people we spoke to at the scene and also those online seem to be quite relaxed about this. Now, yes, damage was done to residential buildings. The Russian Ministry of Defense claims that there were more drones that were shot down either by Russian air defense systems with rockets or with electronic and radio means. And the Kremlin said that was a success for the city, that none of these drones managed to hit their intended targets. We don't publicly know what those intended targets were, but the Russian President Vladimir Putin has suggested that they were looking to hit civilian targets. In terms of the spread of these drones, it's not clear where exactly they would have been heading for. There's a rather large arc across southwestern Moscow where they've been spotted on the ground, having been brought down. The only potential clue would be that one of them was downed around 15 kilometers from the Russian president's residence, around 15 kilometers from that place in western Moscow. But apart from that, we don't know what the true target was.
Well, Stuart, what is the Kremlin's response to the drone attack?
Yeah, well, it said that for now everything is under control, that residents of Moscow do not need to worry at the moment about any further strikes, that the armed forces are prepared and did a good job. Having said that, the Russian president has suggested that air defense will need to be boosted in Moscow. Of course, they did get very close and have come very close before to the capital. Now, this is different than previous weeks when the drones hit the Kremlin. At that time, that was described as an assassination attempt against the Russian president. This time, the Kremlin is describing it as effectively a response from Kiev to a set of Russian drone attacks that took place at the weekend. But of course, there is an expectation this won't be the end of it, that there will be more. And one high-ranking Russian lawmaker, part of the Defense Committee in the lower house of parliament, has suggested there will be loopholes in Russia's defense. It's a big country and not all of these drones can be stopped.
Thank you very much. That is our correspondent Stuart Smith in Moscow. At least 10 people have been killed and 55 injured after a bus carrying Hindu pilgrims skidded off a bridge and into a gorge in the Indian-controlled Kashmir. The incident happened near the city of Jammu as the vehicle made its way from Punjab to a shrine in the town of Katra. Police say the bus was overloaded and they are investigating the cause of the accident. A Jewish settler described as a civilian in his 30s has been killed by the gunmen in the occupied West Bank. A Palestinian armed group has claimed the responsibility. Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade said it was a revenge attack for the killing of Palestinians by Israel. Israel's defense ministry says it is conducting searches to track down the gunmen. Tesla CEO Elon Musk is in Beijing for talks with senior Chinese officials and a visit to Tesla's Shanghai plant. His private jet could be seen at Beijing International Airport on Tuesday. Musk has met with China's foreign minister on the visit, which aims to boost cooperation between his company and the government. The electric car maker's Shanghai plant is its largest production hub. China is its second largest market after the US. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. China's 3-person crew, including its first civilian to go into orbit, arrives at the Tiangong space station.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
There's a new agenda for a new world, accelerating change in almost every part of our lives. It's shifting the norms of how we work, travel, and connect. How we think interact, and develop. It's a new reality, a new agenda with me, Juliette Mann.
Welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. NATO condemns violent clashes in northern Kosovo that injured 30 of its peacekeepers and at least 50 ethnic Serbian protesters. Multiple drones hit Moscow. Russia accuses Ukraine of staging a terrorist strike. Bombarding the capital, Kiev is hit by a fresh wave of Russian airstrikes for the fourth time in 3 days. The Shenzhou 16 Taikonauts have successfully entered Tiangong, the official name for the China space station, for what will mark only the second change of crew since the space station went into orbit. CGTN's Wu Lei reports from the Beijing Aerospace Control Center.
What an important moment in the history of China's space station. As we can see, Shenzhou 16 crew are now entering the Tianhe core module, while Shenzhou 15 crew are now waiting to welcome them on the other side.
We will certainly make a smooth handover with Shenzhou 15 crew. Thanks.
After the swift automated rendezvous, the Shenzhou 16 spaceship docked on the Tianhe core module from below. The whole space station consists of 6 spacecraft, including 2 lab modules, 2 manned spaceships, and the Tianhe core module and the Tianzhou 6 cargo ship.
In the very beginning, it took us about 2 days to finish the docking process, but with the help of better technology, we've managed to shorten the whole rendezvous and docking process to 6.5 hours.
A total of 6 Taikonauts will be working and living on the Tiangong space station over the coming days, until the Shenzhou 15 crew eventually return to Earth.
We will be working shifts. Engineers and designers from the spaceship and space station systems will be on standby ready to guarantee the safety of the Taikonauts.
The China space station is expected to be operational for at least 10 years. And we can expect to witness handovers like this twice annually, as Shenzhou 16 crew begins its 6 months in space. They will take part in spacewalks and a range of different experiments. Wu Lei, CGTN, Beijing Aerospace Control Center.
The Shenzhou 16 went through a series of upgrades before it brought the Taikonauts to the space station. And as Swingye reports, there are more improvements on the way.
Improvements have been made across systems for the first manned mission since the Tiangong entered long-term operation.
As the first manned spacecraft in the application phase for China's space station, the Shenzhou 16 spacecraft is carrying a larger number of payloads than before, including payloads used for experiments. This is also the first spacecraft of a new batch, and we have made more than 100 technical improvements and upgrades, as including using domestically made key components, making it more independent and more controllable. We have also used the Beidou navigation satellite system, so the Beidou application has been involved in the entire mission.
And there are plans for new upgrades to Shenzhou manned spaceship in the coming years for greater safety and reliability.
The upgrade of critical components of the Shenzhou 16 spacecraft is comparable to upgrades to the muscles and bones of a body. In the future, according to mission plans, we will also upgrade its heart, which is the energy system. The Shenzhou spacecraft already has a long history, and it will always be improving, making itself safer, more reliable, and more capable.
The Long March 2F rocket that carries Shenzhou 16 spaceship into space has also been fine-tuned to improve safety and reliability, as engineers say they always work under the motto, human spaceflight is a matter of life and death.
We've further improved the rocket, and the reliability index score for this Long March 2F Y-16 rocket has reached 0.9896, the highest score to date.
At the same time, the Shenzhou 17 spacecraft is ready to be sent into space in the event of an emergency. China Manned Space Agency has said for the Shenzhou 16 mission, safe, stable, smooth operations are first and foremost as it expands in applications and development. Sun Ye, CGTN, 九圈.
A temporary week-long ceasefire in Sudan has been extended by a further 5 days to allow aid to reach civilians. The truce between the military and the rapid support forces, who have been fighting for more than 6 weeks, was brokered by Saudi Arabia and the United States. They say there have been violations on both sides, but aid has reached around 2 million people. The U.S. state of California has taken the first step towards offering compensation to the African-American descendants of slaves. A reparations task force approved the recommendations for payouts of up to $1.2 million. But as Edith Tian-San reports, the plan faces an uphill battle.
California didn't allow slavery within its borders when it entered the Union as a free state in 1850, and during that time the state didn't pass laws to guarantee freedom to slaves. Since then, generations of black people living in the state have been held back by discriminatory practices like redlining and school segregation. And today, many in the black community do not have access to the same capital resources as other people with stronger financial stability and credit scores. In Los Angeles, the city's oldest African-American church has been working with small banks to provide microfinance programs for the families in need.
Our own young people, our own young families, to become entrepreneurs and to have access to capital, because it almost takes money to get money.
California's reparations plan for black residents aims to do just that through a task force that's now approved recommendations that will be handed over to the state assembly.
I am hopeful that this nation, maybe if not as a whole, but some of our states actualize reparations. You know, it's long overdue. So I'm not surprised. I am hopeful, and I hope to see it in my lifetime.
It's taken the state years to put a cost on reparations for its more than 2.5 million African-American residents. California Reparations Task Force has been working since 2020 to calculate the total economic loss faced by black Americans in California due to systemic discrimination. Taking into account the areas of health harms, the devaluation of black businesses, housing segregation, mass incarceration, and over-policing and unjust property takings, the toll reaches $800 billion, more than twice California's annual budget. The task force found the payments could be made in installments over the years, with the highest amount a qualifying black resident could get capped at $1.2 million. However, legal experts argue this type of legislation will certainly face an uphill battle.
The horrors of slavery are real. It's not something that is easily forgotten or forgiven, but you cannot force people that did not commit the crime to pay those people who were not victims of the crime. And the 14th Amendment is very clear. You cannot make a law that favors or harms one race over another. So you cannot discriminate your way to freedom. You cannot discriminate your way to equality. And this reparations bill, I don't think it'll ever see the light of day. And if it does, it will be rapidly struck down by the courts.
The unprecedented move has certainly received much attention nationwide, but its prospects are far from certain. It is Tianshan, CGTN, Los Angeles.
As part of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, a brand new museum dedicated to Chinese railroad workers has opened in San Francisco's Chinatown. It pays tribute to the 20,000 Chinese workers who helped build America's first transcontinental railroad in the 1860s. CGTN's Mark New reports.
3, 2. On the 154th anniversary of the driving of the Golden Spike, city dignitaries and community members gathered to celebrate the soft launch of the Chinese Railroad Workers History Museum.
The Chinese railroad workers, our sacrifice.
The location of the center is symbolic in a number of ways. It's right in the heart of San Francisco Chinatown, and just days before the soft launch, organizers found out that descendants of Chinese railroad workers once lived directly above the very same building.
You said, I want to honor the blood, sweat, and tears.
Connie Young-Yu's great-grandfather came to San Francisco in 1866.
This is a signature of Li Wongsang, my great-grandfather, the railroad worker on the Transcontinental. Always, the Chinese always had to testify that they were legitimate, although he never said I was a laborer, because that was during the time of the Chinese exclusion law, when a Chinese laborer was considered the lowest class of person in America, excluded from immigration.
Young-Yu says Chinese railroad workers were obliterated from U.S. history, not mentioned in textbooks when she was growing up, and without any faces appearing in the iconic joining of the rails photo.
At last, the Chinese have their own place that they designated themselves as a center, a site to remember Chinese railroad workers, our ancestors. What is more iconic and more iconically American than the railroad?
The center is the vision of philanthropist Florence Fang.
And we put the Chinese railroad workers is really nailed down the last nail.
Fang's own sketches got the ball rolling on constructing replicas of the two trains that came together for the joining of the rails.
This is exactly, locomotive is a copied replica from the original. So each design and outcome design and the wording, everything. The train is coming. So that's showing, the last railroad we finished, the train's coming. So the two trains just meet and complete the Transcontinental Railroad to connect the Americans east and west.
Downstairs has double the space where more is yet to come.
But this one is going to be the focus place.
Fang envisions the center as an event venue for the community and a place where children can learn about their history.
So many, anti-Asian sentiment and hope. This is the positive, stories sent outside to the community. Especially, this story just tell our ancestors come to this country and looking for opportunity, looking for American dreams. And they paid, the contribution to build the country.
The Chinese Railroad Workers Center officially opens to the public in mid-June. Mark New, CGTN, San Francisco.
The headlines again. NATO condemns violent clashes in northern Kosovo that injured 30 of its peacekeepers and at least 50 ethnic Serbian protesters. Multiple drones hit Moscow. Russia accuses Ukraine of staging a terrorist strike. Bombarding the capital, Kiev is hit by a fresh wave of Russian airstrikes for the fourth time in 3 days. And that is The Walk today. Thanks for watching. There is more news on CGTN Europe's channel on the Telegram app, or scan the QR code on the screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone. We're back with more news at the top of the next hour. Coming up next is World Insight with Tian Wei. For now, from all the team in London, that's goodbye.